Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to another episode of Geeks Watch. Is the camera off? I think the camera's off. Hell with it. I'll scoot over. um, Today we need to talk about Arcane, and a couple different reasons for that. One of them is that Arcane is actually the thing that made me want to get a Netflix account. I realized it came out over a year ago, so it did take me several months. But episode 1 was released for free, and I watched it, and I was like, I really, really, really want to watch this. So, yeah, it took me a while, but I did. This is the thing that made me want to get a Netflix account. The premise of Arcane is, well, it takes place in the fictional city of Piltover and its seedy undercity of Zaun. Piltover has all the good stuff. It's all bright and shiny and clean. And Zaun is where all the poor people live. You know, the people that Piltover exploit for labor. All the trash flows downhill. All the toxic fumes flow down. It's basically a garbage city. And the poor people are forced to live there. And the people of Piltover are perfectly happy to ignore or exploit, but mostly ignore the existence of Zaun. It's just full of poor people and criminals, and nobody cares about it. The opening scene is a conflict between armed guards and people who are not armed. And you see two young girls of indeterminate age, but very young. One is a young girl with blue hair with her eyes covered, holding her older sister's hand. Her older sister is horrified of what has gone on around her. You really don't see much clearly. It's covered in red fog. And you just see a shocked look on the girl's face with occasional glimpses of scenes of violence. They come upon a large man who is beating up someone else with his bare hands. And he turns and sees the two girls. He stops. He carries them off the bridge. And then it time skips to several years in the future. The young girl with blue hair is called Powder. The girl, her older sister with red hair, is called Vi, or Violet, Vi for short. Vi runs a, ragtag band of street urchins. Vi is a teenager. Powder is approximately 9 years old at this point. She is unsure of herself, very hesitant. The other members of the gang are kind of sorry she's tagging along because she's too young to be taking part in this. But Vi's trying to encourage her sister, trying to give her some self-confidence. They're robbing somebody who they probably shouldn't rob. And the story kind of progresses from there. Everything really progresses from this incident, basically from this robbery. Everything kind of that flows kind of centers around this. It also centers around the events of the rebellion too, but these first few this first episode really sets the stage for everything that follows. It is the basically inciting incident, which is, I suppose, is a good way to start a series. Got to start somewhere. But really, everything is really tied to these small few moments, and it just builds on it. And it's about, a lot of it is about these two girls, even though, we get another time skip. Like Act 1 is this event and the events immediately following it. That's kind of Act 1. Then it jumps forward a few years I think like 7 years to the events of how things have resolved from the resolution of Act 1. How things have progressed from the resolution of Act 1. We pick up like 7 years later. There are other characters. You get Jace, who is he eventually comes in. He's the person that they rob. He's got his whole little circle up in Piltover. There's a whole little circle of people in Zaun, the Undercity. You have the main villain, Silco. Okay, I have to, I've got to talk about one thing, and that is the animation. Now, I am an old school animation fan. My childhood heroes were Chuck Jones, Don Bluth, and Ray Harryhausen. For those who are unfamiliar with those names, Chuck Jones is responsible for some of the best and most classic Warner Brothers cartoons. The old Bugs Bunny, Kill the Wabbit. Chuck Jones is responsible for that. The whole What's Opera Doc, The Rabbit of Seville, all the best and most well-known Bugs Bunny of that era cartoons. Chuck Jones, masterclass of animation. What that man did with 12 frames a second is astonishing. Don Bluth did Disney animation. He started off doing the old Winnie the Pooh shorts and went on to make his own movie studio. And Ray Harryhausen did stop motion animation for all those old monster movies in the 50s and 60s. So I'm a huge animation nerd. I have mentioned previously that I am a very passive observer of the media I consume. I don't really think about what I watch. I just let it kind of wash over me and enjoy it as entertainment. Except for animation. I pay attention to animation. And when something animated comes along, I sit up and take notice. And this is a work of art. And I don't say that lightly. This is a masterpiece of animation. I mean, if you've ever heard the phrase "every frame a painting," that's what this is talking about. This is easily on par with anything Disney or Pixar has kicked out in the last 20 years. Hands down, if not better. This is top line. It may have taken them 6 years to make this, and it shows. There is just so much detail and craft and care taken with the animation of this show. And to give you an example, of how well they've crafted this and how well they've done animated, it's the little details that add up, the things that I notice. Like if I grab my hand, you can see the indentation of the flesh. My arm isn't rock solid. If you watch like a cartoon on, Nickelodeon and you grab someone's arm, it's just, there's no indentation of the flesh. There's no give to it. There's no, as opposed to this. If I bang on the table, things move. If I, you can see the skin of my arm kind of jiggle a little bit, not because I'm fat and soft, but because, flesh has give to it. If I put my weight on this table and use it to stand up with, it might give a little bit under my weight. That's the kind of detail that they put into Arcane. There's a scene where someone puts their weight on something and it bends a little bit under their weight. There's a scene where someone punches and you can see like the flesh in their arm kind of jiggle with the impact. It doesn't just, there's the little vibration of the muscles of the forearm. Tiny little stuff like that is everywhere. The background scenes have been hand painted and then 3D rendered. This is art. This is not just a cartoon. This is artwork. And it took them less money to make this 6 hours of animation than Disney spends making a 90-hour kids movie. They just did such an amazing job. And I cannot stop gushing about it. This is worth watching for the animation alone, just to appreciate the craftsmanship of this. And if that was all they did to it, it's enough to stop right there. But it's not, because there's also the writing. This is a good story. I mean, I can't say it's for everyone. This is not a kid's cartoon. It gets super dark, very dark. It deals with things like trauma, real trauma, and not just, the fake stuff that they use to, give people motivation. There is some real traumatic events to the characters in this film, especially GEEXX and Vi. Well, Powder, the gun girl, it becomes GEEXX. This is based on the League of Legends MOBA game. And I didn't have much expectations for this until I saw the first episode a year ago. And because, you're making a movie about a video game. And most of the backstory for the characters doesn't really have a lot of continuity. It's been kind of horned in, really. Yeah, they made it work, but it's a video game. The lore doesn't really matter except to the hardcore fans. And it's just kind of been, cut and pasted in as time went on. And someone who's not a fan of the game, I probably might anger some people with that. But really, it doesn't matter the game. The game is you just pick a character and fight other people. It doesn't need to be any lore. It doesn't have to make sense. These guys made it make sense. They were given like a writer's Bible. These are the rules you have to follow. These are where the characters have to end up. But beyond that, they were given a lot of liberty to show how Powder goes from being a 9-year-old, insecure street kid to being a force of chaos in GEEXX. It gives backstories for other characters. This sets up the origin story for like 6 or 7 League of Legends characters that I can find. I mean, I'm not, like I said, not a fan of the game, so I don't know very well. I only knew it was based on the game, and I've kind of looked up some of the characters to see where they came from and what I might be able to recognize for myself. But other than that, that's about it. But all these characters have weight and depth. None of them are two-dimensional. Just flat figures. This story explores Vi and GEEXX, what happens to them, how what happens to them affects them, and it affects them in realistic ways. This isn't just some, let's throw this against the wall and see if it sticks to make money. The people who wrote this cared about the story. They cared about writing a good story, and they wrote well. Even Silco, the villain, who starts off seeming rather two-dimensional, is given a chance to grow and have depth. Any character with more than a couple of lines is given that chance, is given that kind of depth. Silco's henchmen, not all of them have lines, but the one who does, she's given some depth. Everyone does. Jace, Victor, Singed, Caitlyn, Echo. You don't see much of all of them. This is primarily GEEXX and Vi's story, so they're the two we spend the most time with. But you also spend a fair amount of time with Jace and Victor. So those 4 plot lines are the most important. And then they all have the characters, the people that circle around them, and then you also have Silco as the villain. So, you have those interlinked stories and how they affect each other and how they affect the world around them and how they affect each other personally and individually. And man, this is just so well written. And I had to make this video because I haven't been able to watch anything. I can't watch anything until I talk about this because I want to make sure I didn't forget anything and blur anything with time or other stories. And I'm probably forgetting some stuff that I might have wanted to talk about, but man, this thing was well made. They went hard, and they didn't have to. Man, they went hard with this story, and they put out something that I think everybody should watch. At least the first episode and maybe the second, but the first 3. Watch Act 1. It might not be for everybody, but it's just so well done. This is one of the best written things I've seen in a long time. Even things I may have liked more, this is just better written than stuff I've liked more. So I can't stop talking about it. My daughter and my son-in-law were over for dinner a couple days ago, and my son-in-law is a huge League of Legends fan, and we spent 20 minutes talking about this show and boring my wife because she's not interested at all. But man, I just want to talk about this so much, and I have a personal thing about not spoiling anything. I realize this is a year old. I'm probably not spoiling it for anybody. I could probably tell you the whole story from plot A, to the end, and tell you what the ending is like and what it means for season 2, potentially. But I can't bring myself to do it because it's part of my little OCD stuff. I can't spoil it. I can't bring myself to, as much as I might want to. In case you can't tell, I would highly recommend it. This is A+ material, A++ material. Even if you don't like it, this is just damn good. Yeah. As always, thanks for watching. If you like watching an old man ramble about stuff, good for you, I guess. And until next time, good hunting.